The desert sun burned over the wide golden sands of Giza. The Great Pyramid stood tall and silent as it had for thousands of years. Travelers came every day to see it, to take pictures and to wonder how such a giant monument could have been built by human hands so long ago. Most saw it as only a tourist site, but for scientists it was something more. It was a mystery that still carried secrets. Omar, a middle-aged archaeologist with calm eyes and a patient nature, had worked near the pyramid for many years. He loved the history of his land and often said that every stone carried the voice of the past. He had studied the writings, measured the chambers, and even worked with engineers who used the newest machines to scan the pyramid. But today, something unusual happened. A group of young researchers were setting up new sensors to study the inside of the pyramid without cutting into the stone. They called it a non-invasive scan. The machines sent small pulses through the structure and measured how the signals bounced back. Most of the readings were normal, but then one of the machines gave strange numbers. The technician frowned and called for Omar. "There is something here," the technician said, pointing at the computer screen. "It looks like a large hollow space beneath the main pyramid. It should not be here. No maps show this." Omar bent down, studying the display. He had seen many false readings before, caused by simple errors or broken sensors. But this one was different. The signal was clear. The space was big, perhaps the size of a hall, and it was perfectly shaped. "This is not a mistake," Omar said softly. The news spread quickly. Soon a small group of international scientists gathered around. Some were from Europe, others from Asia and America. They all stared at the same strange result. A hidden chamber beneath the pyramid had been found. For days they worked in secret, checking and rechecking the data. Some argued it was just a natural crack in the stone. Others said it might be a tunnel or forgotten passage. But Omar was not convinced. He had studied the pyramid all his life, and he knew its builders had planned every block with care. Nothing about it was random. At last, the team decided to drill a very thin shaft to send a camera inside. The work was delicate. They did not want to damage the monument. Every step was slow, and guards stood nearby to watch. The world outside had no idea what was happening. Only the workers and scientists knew. When the camera was lowered, everyone leaned close to the monitor. At first the screen was dark, then shapes appeared. Omar gasped. The chamber was not stone. It was made of something smooth and metallic, shining faintly in the camera's light. Strange marks covered the walls, lines and curves that glowed softly as though alive. The camera turned and showed more. The floor was flat and polished, and in the middle stood what looked like a pedestal. "This cannot be," whispered one of the scientists. "There should be nothing like this under a pyramid." "This is not Egyptian stonework." Omar said nothing. His heart beat fast, but his face remained calm. He understood this was more than archaeology. It was something beyond history. They recorded everything and shared it with higher authorities. Soon, experts from around the world began to argue. Some said it must be an ancient trick, a secret room made by the builders that nobody had found. Others said it was impossible, for no tools of that time could create such material. A week later, the news reached the public. Newspapers and television announced it with excitement. "A hidden chamber found beneath the Great Pyramid," the headlines read. People were amazed. Some said it proved aliens had built the pyramids. Others said it was only science finding something new. But nobody could agree on the truth. Meanwhile, Omar felt restless. He could not stop thinking about the glowing symbols and the strange metal walls. He remembered the old stories his grandfather once told him. Tales of hidden rooms, star travelers, and secrets buried under stone. They had sounded like legends, but now they seemed possible. Late one night, Omar walked alone near the pyramid. The air was cool, and the stars shone brightly above the desert. He looked at the ancient structure and whispered, "What are you hiding?" The next morning, the team met again. Some officials wanted to close the project, fearing damage to the pyramid. Others pushed to explore the chamber fully. After long debate, it was agreed that a small group could enter through the shaft they had made. Omar was chosen to lead because of his experience and calm nature. When Omar heard the decision, he felt both fear and excitement. This was not only about history, but about humanity itself. The chamber was waiting, and he knew it had been sealed for thousands of years. As the team prepared, more scans were made. They discovered that the chamber was larger than first thought, stretching deeper underground. The glowing symbols were not random scratches, but carefully arranged patterns. Some seemed to shift when the camera light moved, as if they responded to being watched. On the day of entry, a small crowd gathered outside the site. Reporters tried to take pictures, but guards kept them away. Omar stood with a few trusted scientists, all dressed in protective gear. Before stepping toward the shaft, Omar took a deep breath and touched the sand with his hand. "This land has carried secrets longer than we can count," he said quietly to his team. "Today we will face one of them. Remember, we are here not for power, but for knowledge." The others nodded. The shaft was opened and the first rope ladder was lowered. The air that came out was cool and clean, unlike the dusty tunnels of the pyramid. It felt as if the chamber had been sealed perfectly, untouched by time. Omar placed his hand on the stone beside the opening, steadying himself, then slowly began to climb down. His heart pounded, not with fear but with wonder. All his life he had studied the past, but now he was about to walk into something that no book had ever described. The moment his feet touched the metallic floor, a faint hum rose in the chamber. The glowing lines on the walls brightened as if they sensed his arrival. Omar froze, staring at the symbols as they shimmered in soft blue light. Above, his team watched in awe. "Omar," one called down nervously, "are you safe?" "Yes," Omar answered. His voice shook but carried strength. Safe, but not alone. The first steps inside the secret chamber had been taken. The Great Pyramid had kept its silence for thousands of years, but now it had spoken and humanity had no choice but to listen. The secret chamber under the Great Pyramid had been opened, but only partly explored. Omar and his team had taken the first steps inside, yet much remained hidden in the shadows. The metallic walls with glowing patterns seemed alive, as though they had waited for visitors for thousands of years. Outside, the world argued about what this discovery meant. Inside, Omar knew the answers would not come easily. The decision was made that a smaller team would go deeper. Too many people inside might cause harm, and the air quality had to be tested carefully. Omar was chosen to lead again. With him were three others: Hassan, a young engineer with quick hands; May, a scientist from China who studied ancient languages; and Daniel, a quiet but skilled technician from South America. Together they formed a team of balance: history, science, engineering, and careful observation. The morning of the descent was tense. Reporters stood behind barriers shouting questions. Guards kept order while workers checked equipment. Omar's heart was steady, though his mind raced with thoughts. He knew this was more than archaeology. This was humanity stepping into something no one understood. The shaft that had been drilled was widened slightly to allow better access. A narrow passage now led down into the hidden chamber. Each member of the team carried a small pack with food, water, and tools. Lights were fixed to their helmets, though the chamber's glow seemed to brighten on its own when they approached. Hassan went first, checking the ladder and ropes. Then Daniel followed with measuring instruments. May carried tablets filled with notes on ancient symbols from across the world, hoping they might match what was inside. Omar came last, his eyes fixed on the walls that shone faint blue. As they entered the chamber again, the air felt strangely fresh, not stale like a tomb. The metallic surface of the floor reflected their lights faintly. Omar walked slowly, his boots making soft echoes. "Listen," May whispered. "Do you hear that?" The group paused. A low hum filled the space. It was not loud but constant, like a heartbeat hidden in the walls. Hassan touched the wall with his glove and quickly pulled back. "It feels warm," he said in surprise. Omar placed his hand near the symbols. They glowed brighter when his skin came close, then dimmed again when he pulled away. It was as if the walls responded to human presence. "Not stone, not paint, not normal material," May said softly. "This is something else." In the center of the room stood the pedestal. It was made of the same shining metal, smooth and perfect. The top was flat, with a shallow circle engraved in it. Daniel placed a scanner over the surface, but the device gave no reading. "It does not react to our machines," Daniel said. "It refuses to be measured." The chamber itself was large, but at the far side stood a circular door. It was tall with the same glowing lines, but thicker and heavier. No handle or lock was visible. "This is where it leads," Omar said. "The question is, how do we open it?" They tried shining lights, pressing gently, even speaking near it. Nothing happened. Then May noticed something on the pedestal. Inside the shallow circle were faint marks, tiny points arranged like a pattern of stars. "These are constellations," she said, pointing. Not all of them, but some I recognize. Orion the hunter, the same that rises over the desert sky. Omar nodded. The builders of the pyramids followed the stars. Perhaps this is connected. As they studied the circle, Hassan accidentally placed his palm near its center. At once the pedestal glowed, and a thin beam of light shot toward the circular door. The glowing lines on the door spread outward like veins of light, pulsing slowly. The hum grew louder. The air vibrated. The door began to shift. The team stepped back, their hearts racing. The massive circle rotated soundlessly, then slid open with smooth grace, revealing a dark passage beyond. A faint breeze moved through, carrying a smell not of dust, but of something fresh, like clean air from deep mountains. Daniel whispered, "This place is not dead. It is alive." Omar took a deep breath. "We continue." The passage was long and curved, sloping downward. The walls glowed faintly with flowing patterns, giving enough light to see. The team walked carefully, marking their steps. No insects, no sand, no signs of natural life were here, only the strange metal surface. After many minutes, they entered another chamber. This one was even larger, shaped like a dome. At its center hung a sphere, floating in the air without support. It pulsed with light, soft and steady like a heart. Around the sphere were smaller platforms, each holding objects that looked like tools or devices. The group stared in silence. Hassan whispered, "It is impossible. No gravity, no wires, yet it floats." May slowly walked closer, studying the markings on the sphere. They shifted and moved, forming shapes that almost looked like language. She tried to take notes, but the symbols changed too quickly. "It is trying to speak," she said. Omar stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the sphere. Something about it drew him closer, not with fear, but with calm. He raised his hand slightly, then stopped. He remembered the old tales his grandfather told him of sacred things that should not be touched without respect. But before he could decide, Daniel placed a small sensor on the ground. The moment he did, the sphere pulsed brightly. Light burst across the chamber. The glowing patterns on the walls danced, forming circles and lines. Suddenly the team was surrounded by images, not on screens, not in their eyes alone, but in their minds. They saw visions of ancient deserts, of men and women building great stone structures, while shadows of tall figures guided them. They saw ships in the sky, stars shining closer than ever before. Omar gasped as the images flowed. The builders of the pyramid had not worked alone. They had help from visitors beyond Earth. But the visitors did not stay. They left behind knowledge, symbols, and perhaps this hidden place. The vision faded slowly. The sphere dimmed, returning to its steady glow. The chamber grew silent again, except for the soft hum. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, May whispered, "We are not the first to stand here, but we may be the first to understand." Hassan shook his head in disbelief. "If the world sees what we just saw, everything will change. History, science, all of it." Omar placed his hand over his heart. His voice was calm but strong. "The world will argue. Some will believe, some will deny. But the truth is here in front of us. We must continue. There may be more to learn and perhaps more tests to face." The others nodded, though fear and wonder filled their eyes. They knew they had crossed into something greater than archaeology. The descent into the hidden chamber was not only a journey into stone, but a journey into humanity's deepest questions. Above, the Great Pyramid stood quiet under the desert sky. But beneath its ancient weight, secrets long buried had begun to awaken, and humanity was stepping into a story far older and larger than anyone had imagined. The floating sphere glowed gently in the vast chamber, its light steady and calm. Omar and his team stood silently, still recovering from the visions they had just seen. The images of ancient builders guided by tall, shadowy figures, the ships in the sky, and the star maps had shaken them deeply. For years, people had argued whether the pyramids were built only by human hands or with help from others. Now the answer stood before them, not in words, but in living memory carried by light. Omar looked at his team. Hassan's hands trembled, though he tried to hide it. May's eyes glistened with both fear and excitement. Daniel's face was pale, his usual quiet nature even more silent. "This is more than discovery," Omar said softly. "This is awakening." The sphere pulsed as if answering him. The patterns on its surface shifted again, forming new shapes. This time, the team felt something different. The images that appeared were not just memories of the past, but something directed at them. Lines of light spread from the sphere across the floor, creating paths that glowed like rivers. The paths moved toward the platforms around the chamber, where strange objects rested. The objects lit up one by one. May pointed at the nearest platform. "It wants us to look." The four humans approached carefully. On the platform lay a device shaped like a tablet, but not made of stone or glass. It shimmered, its surface liquid-like yet solid under Omar's fingers. When May touched it, the device projected light upward, forming a map of the night sky. Stars burned bright, moving slowly as if alive. "It shows the heavens," May whispered, "but not only Earth's sky. Look, these are systems beyond what we can see without strong telescopes." The map shifted again, focusing on certain points. Small marks glowed brighter, as if highlighting places of importance. "Perhaps these are the other chambers," Daniel said, his voice low, "hidden across the galaxy like this one." As they studied the map, the sphere glowed brighter. More images filled their minds, races of beings, some tall, some small, some strange in form. Each appeared before the humans like living memories. Then came flashes of fire, broken worlds, and silence. The message was clear. Not all had succeeded in keeping knowledge alive. Hassan shook his head. "It is showing us what happened to others. Civilizations failed. They lost what was given to them." Omar's voice was steady. "But we are still here. Humanity still rises." The chamber seemed to react. The walls glowed brighter as if agreeing. Then the sphere shifted again. A new light spread across the floor, forming patterns like puzzles. Shapes rose from the ground, glowing forms of stone, metal, and symbols. The team quickly realized this was a test. "It is asking us to solve," May said firmly. "This is not just showing, it is teaching, maybe judging." The puzzles were strange. One was a group of floating shapes that needed to be arranged into balance. Another was a pattern of lights that responded to sound. Daniel clapped his hands and the lights shifted. Hassan tapped the wall with a tool, and the lights danced again. Slowly, by trial and error, they learned how to make the lights form order. At first it was difficult. Hassan grew frustrated, wanting to use force. But Omar reminded him gently, "Not force. Think like builders. Think like dreamers." Working together, they solved one puzzle after another. The chamber responded each time with brighter light and softer hums. The more they worked, the more they realized the tests were not about strength or even knowledge of machines. They were about creativity, teamwork, and the ability to adapt. After the final puzzle, the sphere pulsed brighter than ever. The entire dome filled with shining light, covering the walls in flowing waves. Then came the vision again. This time it was stronger, clearer. They saw Earth, but not as it was now. They saw humanity rising, building, exploring. They saw ships leaving Earth's orbit, traveling to the stars. They saw humans standing side by side with other beings, sharing knowledge, not as students but as equals. May gasped and covered her mouth. "It is showing us what could be," Hassan whispered. "It believes in us." Daniel finally spoke, his quiet voice carrying strength. "We are the awakening it has waited for." Omar stood tall, his eyes fixed on the sphere. The images showed him something deeper. He saw his ancestors lifting stones under the desert sun, guided by star-born visitors. He saw their hope that one day humanity would grow strong enough to understand. That day perhaps had come. The vision faded, leaving only the glowing sphere and the calm hum. The team stood in silence, each lost in thought. May broke the silence. "If this is real, if this is meant for us, then it changes everything. Our history, our future, it is no longer just Earth, it is the stars." Omar nodded. "Yes, but the world will not believe easily. Some will deny, some will fear. We must be careful." The chamber dimmed slightly as if agreeing with caution. But then the sphere shifted again. From its surface came a small beam of light that landed on the pedestal in the center of the room. Slowly something rose from the pedestal, a small crystal-like object glowing softly. Omar stepped forward and carefully lifted it. The glow spread through his hands but caused no harm. He felt warmth as if the crystal carried energy. The sphere pulsed once, then grew calm again. "This is a gift," Omar said. "A key, perhaps." The team packed their instruments and prepared to leave. As they walked back through the passage, the glowing walls dimmed behind them, as if returning to sleep. When they reached the first chamber, Omar looked back one last time. The great circular door slid closed, sealing the inner chamber once more. The hum softened, fading into silence. The secrets of the second chamber were hidden again. But the humans carried something new in their minds and hands. a vision of the stars and a crystal key that might unlock even greater truths. When they emerged into the sunlight above, reporters and officials rushed to them. Cameras flashed. Questions filled the air, but Omar and his team remained quiet. The truth they had seen could not be explained in simple words. It was not just a discovery of science, but an awakening of humanity's place in the universe. That night, Omar sat alone outside his tent, gazing at the Great Pyramid under the starlit sky. He held the crystal in his hand, watching its soft glow. The stars above seemed brighter than ever, as if calling him forward. For the first time in his life, Omar felt that the ancient stones behind him and the endless sky above were connected by one story, a story waiting for humans to finish. And he knew this was only the beginning. The desert was calm above, but beneath the Great Pyramid, Omar and his team felt the weight of something greater than history. The discovery of the glowing sphere, the visions of ancient builders, and the gift of the crystal had already changed their understanding of the world. Yet Omar knew this was not the end. The chamber had not only revealed secrets, it had also tested them. And tests rarely ended with the first step. For 2 days, the team remained at their camp, studying the crystal and their notes. May tried to compare the glowing patterns she had seen with old writings from Egypt, Mesopotamia, and other ancient lands. Hassan tested the crystal with tools, but none could measure its power. Daniel worked quietly, recording every detail. Omar kept watch over them, his eyes often drifting to the pyramid as if it were waiting. On the third night, something happened. Omar was sitting outside his tent, staring at the stars, when the crystal in his hand began to glow softly. The light pulsed slowly like a signal. At the same time, he felt a vibration under his feet. Faint but real. He knew then that the chamber below was calling them again. The next morning, he gathered his team. "The crystal is not only a gift," Omar said. "It is a key, and the chamber is asking us to return." The others agreed, though their faces showed worry. They prepared their equipment once more and descended into the pyramid's hidden heart. When they reached the metallic hall, the circular door opened without their touch, as if waiting. The passage glowed brighter this time, guiding them forward. The second chamber with the floating sphere welcomed them again, but the sphere now pulsed faster, its light sharper. As Omar stepped closer, the crystal in his hand shone brightly. The sphere responded by sending beams of light across the chamber. The beams struck the walls, and suddenly the room began to change. The smooth floor shifted. The walls rippled like liquid metal, reforming into new shapes. Platforms rose from the ground, forming paths and obstacles. The hum grew louder, vibrating in their bones. "It is starting a trial," May whispered. "It wants to test us again." The first challenge appeared before them. A wide gap opened in the floor, too far to cross by jumping. Floating platforms of glowing stone appeared, moving slowly across the gap. The only way forward was to step onto them. Hassan stepped first, his balance quick and steady. The platform moved under his weight but carried him forward. May followed, then Daniel. When Omar stepped on, the platform shook harder, as if testing his calm. He stood still, breathing evenly, and the platform steadied itself. Together they reached the other side. The sphere pulsed once, as if approving. Next, the chamber filled with beams of light that crisscrossed the path. They moved slowly at first, then faster. Touching one made the beam glow brighter, sending a loud sound through the room. Hassan tried to rush but was caught by a beam, and the sound made the floor tremble. "Not speed," Omar said calmly. "Patience. Watch the pattern." They waited, studied the movement, and timed their steps, moving slowly. Carefully, they crossed without triggering more beams. Again, the sphere pulsed, brighter this time. The third trial was different. 4 panels rose from the ground, each glowing with symbols. The symbols shifted and rearranged, forming puzzles of light. Each panel seemed to respond to one person only. May touched hers and saw symbols that looked like stars and languages. Hassan's showed shapes of tools and machines. Daniel's formed numbers and patterns. Omar's formed flowing lines like rivers or pathways. "It has chosen puzzles for each of us," May said. They worked in silence, each solving their own task. Hassan struggled at first, trying to force his panel to respond. But when he stopped and thought carefully, the tools shaped themselves into a perfect design. Mai used her knowledge of ancient scripts to align the symbols into meaning. Daniel solved the numbers with calm focus, his quiet mind sharp. Omar traced the flowing lines until they formed a path leading to a star. When all 4 panels glowed together, the chamber shook, then settled. The sphere pulsed again, brighter than ever, but the final trial was the hardest. The chamber darkened suddenly, leaving only the glow of the sphere. From the floor rose figures made of light, tall, shadowy shapes similar to the ones they had seen in visions. The shapes moved forward, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans. "They are testing us with fear," Daniel whispered. The figures surrounded them, their presence heavy and strange. The team felt pressure in their minds, like voices speaking without words. Images of failure, destruction, and weakness filled their thoughts. Hassan dropped to his knees, covering his head. May trembled, tears filling her eyes. Omar stood tall. His voice was calm but strong. "We are not here to fail. We are not here to take. We are here to learn." The shadows pressed harder, sending visions of Earth burning, of humans fighting each other, of civilizations falling into dust. Omar closed his eyes. He remembered the workers of old, his ancestors who carried stones under the sun, who built not for themselves but for the future. He thought of the people alive today dreaming of the stars. He spoke louder. "Yes, we are not perfect, but we are human. We rise when we fall. We create when all is broken. That is our strength." The shadows hesitated. The pressure lifted slightly. May found her voice. "We do not give up. We imagine. We dream," Daniel added softly. "We endure." Hassan raised his head, his fear fading. "And we build." The shadows stopped. Slowly they dissolved into light, fading into the walls. The chamber brightened once more. The hum grew soft like a calm breath after storm. The sphere pulsed gently, steady and warm. The trial was over. The four humans stood together, their hearts pounding but their spirits lifted. They had been tested not only in body or mind but in soul. The chamber had judged them worthy, not because they were perfect but because they carried the human spirit of resilience and hope. From the sphere came a final burst of light, filling the dome. In their minds appeared one last vision, a map of stars, larger and clearer than before. Dozens of points glowed across the galaxy. Each point seemed to mark a hidden chamber like this one. The message was clear: Earth was not alone. Others had built, others had been tested. Some had failed. Now humanity's time had come to walk this path. The vision faded, leaving the team in silence. The sphere dimmed but still glowed softly like a watchful guardian. Omar held the crystal tightly. He looked at his team. This was the trial. And we passed. But this is not the end. It is only the beginning. They walked back through the passage, their steps slow, their minds heavy with the weight of what they had faced. When they reached the surface, the desert sun blinded them, and the noise of the waiting world surrounded them. But inside, each carried a new strength. The pyramid had tested them and found them worthy. Humanity had proven itself not by power or weapons, but by unity, creativity, and courage. As Omar looked at the pyramid's towering stones, he whispered, "The builders left us a path. Now we must walk it." The trial had ended, but the true journey was only beginning. The sun rose slowly over the desert, casting a golden glow over the Great Pyramid. Omar and his team stood at the entrance of the hidden chamber, watching the light spill over the sand. Above ground, life continued as usual. Tourists wandered near the pyramid. Merchants shouted to sell their wares, and the city of Giza hummed with activity. Yet beneath the pyramid, the world had changed. The trials in the chamber, the visions from the sphere, and the crystal key had left a lasting impression on the humans who had faced them. They had proven themselves worthy, not by strength or cleverness alone, but by teamwork, courage, and the human spirit. They had passed the tests of the ancient guardians and unlocked the potential for humanity to step beyond Earth. Omar held the crystal carefully, feeling its soft warmth. It pulsed gently in his hand, almost like it had a heartbeat. He looked at his team, Hassan, May, and Daniel. Each one had grown through the trials. Fear had tested them, but now courage guided them. Confusion had clouded their minds, but clarity now shone brightly. "We have done what no one else could," Omar said quietly, "but this is only the beginning." May stepped closer to him, her eyes still reflecting the light of the crystal. "What we saw in the sphere? The other chambers, the stars? It is all out there. Humanity can reach it if we choose." Daniel nodded. "We have the knowledge, the path. The question is, do we have the courage to walk it?" Hassan smiled faintly, his earlier fear gone. "We survived the trials beneath the pyramid. We can face the stars too." Omar looked back at the pyramid, its stones golden in the morning sun. For thousands of years it had stood silent, guarding its secrets. Now those secrets had been revealed to a few, yet he knew the world above might not understand. Some people would dismiss their discoveries, some would fear them, and others might seek to exploit them. "We must be careful," he said. "The knowledge is powerful, but the real power lies in how we use it. Humanity must rise, not as conquerors, but as learners and creators." The team returned to their camp to organize their findings. Cameras, recordings, notes, and the crystal were carefully packed. They knew that once the world discovered the hidden chamber, questions would come from every corner. But Omar and his team had a responsibility: to share knowledge wisely. As they worked, the crystal continued to glow softly. Occasionally, it pulsed faster, as if reminding them of something important. Omar held it close and wondered. The chamber had tested them, yes, but the crystal hinted that more challenges awaited humanity in the future. Challenges that would stretch across planets and stars. A week later, the team returned to the chamber with engineers and scientists. They conducted careful studies of the walls, the pedestal, and the glowing symbols. Every measurement confirmed that the chamber was unique, beyond any technology known on Earth. The sphere had not moved, but the crystal resonated with it. A connection existed, subtle but undeniable. Omar placed the crystal on the pedestal. Immediately, a beam of light rose from it, reaching the sphere. The patterns on the sphere shifted and images filled the chamber once more. Unlike before, these images were clearer, calmer. They showed Earth as a small blue dot in the vast universe. Then, stars and planets appeared, some glowing brighter than Earth. The team realized the sphere was showing them locations of other chambers, hidden across the galaxy just as May had suspected. "This is remarkable," May whispered. "We are not alone. Others may have walked this path, but they did not succeed. Now it is our turn." Omar studied the map. Each glowing point was a destination, a mystery waiting for humans to solve. Some were close to Earth, others light years away. "Humanity has been given a chance," he said. "The pyramid, the chamber, the trials, they were all preparation. Now we must be ready to take the next steps." The team spent days documenting everything. They recorded every symbol, every image from the sphere, every pulse of the crystal. The more they learned, the more they realized the importance of patience, wisdom, and unity. This knowledge was not for power or wealth. It was for understanding, for growth, for proving that humanity could rise above limitations and fear. When they finally emerged from the chamber one last time, the desert was quiet. The sun shone high and the sand seemed endless. Omar looked up at the pyramid, feeling a deep respect for the ancient builders. Their knowledge had been preserved for thousands of years, waiting for humans ready to meet it with courage and integrity. Hassan looked at the horizon. "Do you think the world will believe us?" Omar smiled. "Some will, some will not. That does not matter. The knowledge exists and we have seen it. We have been given a responsibility. That is enough," Daniel nodded. "It feels bigger than us, bigger than Earth." "It is bigger," Omar agreed, "and we are part of it. We are the continuation of the builder's work. Our species has a chance to join what came before and create something new, not as followers but as humans who rise." Over the next months, the team shared carefully selected findings with trusted scientists and scholars. They spoke of the chamber, the sphere, and the trials without revealing everything at once. Slowly, humanity began to understand that there was more to its history, more to its potential, and more to its future. But Omar and his team knew the full truth could not be shared yet. Some secrets were too powerful, too delicate. They guarded the crystal, the knowledge of the sphere, and the map of stars. These were keys to humanity's future, and humanity had to be ready. At night, Omar often looked at the sky. The stars had never seemed closer. He imagined humans traveling among them, discovering other chambers, learning from the past, and leaving their own mark on the universe. He thought of the trials they had faced, the lessons they had learned, and the courage they had discovered within themselves. The pyramid, silent and golden, stood as a reminder that humans were capable of greatness. It was proof that knowledge could survive through time, waiting for those who were ready. Humanity had passed the test, and the universe now awaited their next step. One evening, Omar gathered his team one last time. They stood at the edge of the desert, the pyramid behind them and the stars above. "We have learned much," Omar said. "We have been tested and proven worthy. Now it is our duty to prepare humanity for what is out there. We carry the legacy of those who came before, and the responsibility to rise beyond what we know. May held the crystal. It is beautiful. It feels alive, Hassan smiled. And it will guide us. Daniel looked at the horizon. The chambers, the stars, the challenges. We are ready. Humanity is ready, Omar nodded. Yes, this is our legacy. Not just discovery, but growth. Not just knowledge, but understanding. Humanity has proven that it can rise. And now, the journey begins. The desert wind swept over the sand, carrying whispers of the past and hope for the future. The pyramid stood strong, guarding its secrets, but its silence no longer hid them completely. Humanity had awakened and the stars awaited. As the team turned to leave, the pyramid seemed to glow faintly in the setting sun. The lessons, the trials, and the visions had left their mark. The hidden chamber had shared its wisdom, and humanity had answered. Omar looked back one last time, the crystal warm in his hand. The Great Pyramid had kept its secret for thousands of years. Now it had given humanity a gift, a path to rise, to explore, to understand, a legacy to carry through time and space. And humanity would rise,